everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time for your weekly wrap-up, and I want to begin, as I always do, by thanking our newest Patreon supporters. We have Mustafa Ismail, Mark, and Anthony Dodd, who upgraded his Patreon support of the channel. I want to thank all of these folks and everyone who's been contributing on a regular basis, as well as all of you who watch as well, because the channel is growing, and all of those factors come together to make a successful, I hope, effort moving forward as we continue 2017. So I want to thank all of you for your continued support here on the channel. So what did we do this week? Well, I did a bunch of stuff on the Extras channel you can check out at Lon.TV/extras. I've been uploading more and more stuff there more frequently, just because it's a great place to put stuff. I don't like to overload this channel with too many things, because I know what people here are looking for. So I do have things that I haven't been uploading in the past, and I'm now just sticking up there because it's a good place to put it. And I think those who are subscribing know I'm going to post frequently and post some really weird stuff from time to time, just things that help me maybe make a point here on this channel, or review smaller items that may not warrant a full review here on the main channel. So I got a couple of phone cases. I got a new StarTech USB Type-C portable dock. I do some unboxings and whatnot, so definitely check that out. Now on the main channel, we had our interview with our CES 2017 sponsor, Silicon Dust, to talk about the HD Home Run and all the things coming up with that. So you can check out that interview in the master playlist link down below. We also took a look at Plex hardware transcoding, and if you have been following my Plex reviews over the last who knows how long, one of the biggest gripes I've had is that you really can't do much with low-end hardware and Plex, because Plex wasn't using some of the features of the Intel processors to speed up making videos smaller for transmitting to mobile devices or whatever else you're trying to play things back with. And that's one of the strengths of Plex. But they are working on a beta now, which is available to Plex Pass subscribers, and I've got a giveaway related to that in a few minutes, so stay tuned to that. You can now use some of those features of those chips and be able to do some transcoding on lower end hardware. So in this video, we took a look at that Voyo V1 mini PC, which couldn't really do much transcoding at all before, and now it's able to do 2 Blu-ray MKV sessions. So definitely check it out if you are curious about where Plex is going. We also took a look at the Roku 4K product line, the Premier Plus, and the Ultra. I had the Ultra in for review, but when I was starting to do my research on the product line, I realized they have 6 different players currently on the market right now, starting around $29 and going all the way up to $130. Very confusing, I think, for consumers. So I took some time in that video to break down all the different choices that you have, and spent some time on the 4K product line as well, and hopefully it will be helpful. It's 15 minutes long, but I think it'll, at least for this year, describe their full and complete product line. We also took a look at the Seagate Xbox SSD. This is a portable TLC, little external SSD drive that is branded for use with the Xbox, but I found it actually did very well on a computer, and in fact I was very surprised with the performance of it, both in its reads and writes, especially compared to the Samsung T3, which I used to have on the desk here somewhere, that I carry with me everywhere. Really decent little drive, actually, and not that expensive comparatively when you're looking at other complete drives that you might get from other manufacturers out there. Now, some folks wrote in, especially Nico here, who said this is an overpriced product, and Krakentaj here is also looking for a cheaper version of it. And there are things that you can do. In fact, when I did my full overview of the gear that I took to CES last week, I showed you that stock plop device that had a SSD inserted into it. So you can kind of build your own for less, no question about it. But I think there's value on 2 fronts here for something like this. The first is for someone like me who's a video editor that usually is putting videos together on buses and trains and stuff when I'm out covering an event on the road. And I don't like to have my storage in 2 different pieces, and that stock plop, although that drive really connects very firmly into that enclosure, it could fly out of it if I drop it or something, whereas these self-contained units are a little more reliable to me because they don't have multiple parts to them. They are a single unit that I plug into the computer, and I can start editing and have a little better peace of mind with that. The other thing is that consumers look for simple solutions. Remember, my tagline on the top of the page here is consumer-friendly tech reviews, and about 89% of my traffic is still coming from search engine traffic, from people looking to buy products, general consumers, and this is the kind of product that I think is a good consumer product. It doesn't cost much more than other competing consumer solutions, yet delivers good performance, and they're guaranteeing some compatibility with game consoles too. And that is not something that us techies always need to have, those kinds of assurances, but there are people who do, and I thought this was a decent product. And yes, you can definitely piece it together for less. You can get cheaper drives, you can buy less large hard drives if you wish, and get the same thing done. But I did want to make that point that sometimes consumers are looking for an out-of-the-box solution, just like some of those out-of-the-box gaming PCs we sometimes look at, and this is a good example of that on the storage side of things. And now it's time for a couple of things that are on my mind, and one thing that I forgot to mention last week was that I finally got to try out the Star Wars Battlepod while I was in Las Vegas. So those of you on my Facebook page know that I posted up a video of me playing this game. If you haven't heard of Battlepod, it's a arcade game that you actually go into. There's a door, you open it, you sit down, you've got this big screen in front of you, and you can play as a TIE fighter pilot or an X-Wing pilot and blow up the Death Star or stop the rebels or whatever else you want to do within the Star Wars universe. I was really excited to play this, and it was a fun experience because you do have that big screen and there's a lot of sensation of motion and whatnot. But unfortunately, the gameplay wasn't all that great because you're mostly just moving a target reticle around and adjusting your speed, but you really don't have the ability to freely fly around these awesome environments that they've put together. So a bit of a letdown on the gameplay, but it's a fun experience if you got $2 to spend on something like this. There is a home version available that they will gladly sell you for the low price of $35,000. I think I'll wait for a VR version of it to come soon. Speaking of which, I am still waiting for my X-Wing experience on the PC. You PS4 folks who have the PlayStation VR can play it, but I can't yet, and I'm hoping at some point we get it on our HTC Vives and Oculus Rifts. And if you have an Nvidia Shield TV, there's a big update getting pushed down, hopefully in the next day or two, which will bring your Nvidia Shield TV up to Android Nougat. This is the same operating system that will be in the brand new Nvidia Shield that's coming out this week as well. And that new one, even though it's smaller physically, has the same hardware as the old one, so you will be getting all the new features they've been talking about in their new device pushed down to your device for free this week, which is exciting. The big change for me, the one that I'm most excited about, is that Amazon Video will now be installed on your Nvidia Shield TV after the updates. You'll be getting access to that. I think this is the first Android-powered device, at least for the TV, that will have Amazon Video, which is a big deal because, as you know, Amazon and Google have been feuding, and we haven't been seeing too many ways to watch Amazon content on a television without having to buy an Amazon device. Really cool to see this coming onto the Nvidia Shield TV and making it even more useful for me. So that was pretty cool to see. And SpaceX over the weekend successfully launched a rocket into space with 10 satellites on board for Iridium. I do cover space here on the channel from time to time. I'll put a link to some of my other space videos down below. But what's really cool about this launch is that they once again landed the first stage of their rocket on a barge, and this time there's video from that rocket all the way down. It was really cool to see. I've got a snippet running right now, but I've got a longer one on the extra channel. If you do check that out, definitely go to the comment stream, and you can see some folks who believe all of this space stuff is just a big hoax and don't believe any of it. It's kind of entertaining and scary at the same time. And if you were following the Lily drone project, it was a crowd-funded drone that was going to follow you around and float in water and all these cool things that they showed in their video. It's no more. They are shuttering the project, and well, they say we'll be refunding people's money in the next 60 days and calling the company quits. And that is it for the Lily drone, and yet another crowd-funded drone project that took a lot of money up front and could not deliver. I just hope that people get their money back this time. This drone was supposedly going to be able to follow you around, kind of what the DJI drones are doing now. They showed a really flashy intro video to get people to pony up $500 a shot to get their hands on one early, and nobody got their drone. And in fact, the entire video turned out to be a complete farce. In fact, the San Francisco district attorney is suing the company because they apparently had done some things that were not so kosher, in that the video from that video was not actually taken from their camera system, but from a GoPro that was on a DJI drone. And this is one of the quotes from a Forbes article I have linked down below. They apparently subpoenaed some communications from the company, including this one from one of the company's officers who was worried about lying publicly and having a GoPro take footage for their pitch video. So that is the end of the Lily, and hopefully you will get your money back, but definitely check your email box for more instructions, because if your credit card expired between the time that you made your first bid about a year and a half ago to now, you need to give them your information so they can PayPal you the money. And now it's time for some Q&A, and I got a bunch of questions in about the Nintendo Switch presentation and whether or not I watched it, and I did watch it, and it was okay. It really didn't blow me away. It was something I expected based on what we had seen from Nintendo with their prior teaser announcement, and I was disappointed that we didn't get a better idea as to what kind of hardware it was running with. We did see some of the games running, which looked pretty nice, including that Zelda game, but I don't know if this is going to be enough to put Nintendo back on track with its hardware, and it kills me because the games that I've been playing on the Wii U have probably been some of Nintendo's best work ever. I mean, these games are just amazing, the first-party Nintendo games, but their hardware has been keeping these awesome games out of the hands of a lot of people who don't find a compelling enough reason to invest in their hardware just to get a couple of really decent first-party Nintendo games. So I don't know where this is going to go. I think they're going to have a big problem with battery life. They were saying that the battery life was between 2 to 6 hours on it, depending on what the game was. And I know just from my experience with some of these little PCs and the batteries on them that the games that you want to play, the nice games that drive the graphics and provide the best experience, will of course use the most system resources and drain that battery faster. So I wouldn't be surprised if that Zelda game gets you maybe 2 or 3 hours when you're detached from the battery. It does have USB Type-C on there, but they didn't mention if it's charging with the higher voltages that you can get with USB now or not. So we'll see what kind of charging speed it has, but the notion of walking around with an external battery just brings me back to the days of the Game Boy, where they actually sold this big battery pack as a external accessory that you would plug into the side of your Game Boy to give it some better battery life on the road. I don't know. So we'll have to see how this whole thing comes together. I do wish they were more specific about the hardware specifications. It looks like it's going to be probably a underpowered Nvidia Shield processor. The X1, I think, is probably, or something similar to it. Maybe Nvidia designed a custom chip for them. So I think it'll be decently powered for 1080p. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near the performance we'll see on the Project Scorpio Xbox or some of these low-cost living room PCs we're going to be seeing in the next few months either. So, I'm not all that optimistic about it, which is unfortunate because I think Nintendo makes some great software that they're making it difficult to get that software into the hands of people that want to play those games. I think people's hardware decisions are changing rapidly, and I think the market is going to be changing very rapidly as well. If you look inside the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox, I've talked about this before, they have the same processor inside of them. They are basically little PCs that are running with the almost identical hardware, and I think we're going to be seeing more of this commoditization over time as PC components get a lot cheaper. It used to be that a game console was inexpensive because it had to be, and it used different components from what you might get in a computer, but now the computers are getting to be the same cost or less than some game consoles are. We've built a few here on the channel, and the notion of having to have a special game device versus a computer is rapidly changing here. So we'll have to see what comes out of this, but I am not optimistic this will be a success, but who knows what is successful these days out in the marketplace, and I really hope it is, because I really do enjoy Nintendo's games, but I just don't know if this is going to be enough to get people back into buying Nintendo hardware again, given that so many gamers have left for other platforms and maybe just buy one of the handheld Nintendo devices like the 3DS, which is a really fun system, but we'll see. I'm just not optimistic that Nintendo's got something that's going to save the company here. I did want to answer, though, this related question from Dave for Shmups, and he's wondering, do I play games on a console versus a PC? And this actually comes back to my point about this hardware commoditization. When I started the channel, I wasn't playing all that many games anymore, just because I was so busy with all this stuff going on in my life. But I got back into it because of all of you and the things that we've been doing here on the channel. So I've been building up this pretty large Steam library now of games. And I really like the fact that I can buy a game on Steam and play it on my Mac if it was a Mac-compatible game. I can play it on that little handheld I got from GPD. I can play it on my PCs. I can play it on anything. And everything just kind of syncs up. And wherever I am, whatever room I'm in, or wherever place I'm in, I have access to my games. And all of my save game data for most of the games that I have just syncs up everywhere. It's such a great experience to not have to be reliant on a single piece of hardware, and I can sit down wherever I am and get the games that I want to play and play them without having to have any compromises or having to lug around additional hardware or anything like that. Even got my Mac that I can boot up into Windows to load up some of my Windows-only games on there, and that experience has been a great one for me. In fact, I've been playing more games that way. I look for games that I can play across different devices like that now and making my purchase decisions, and I think consumers are going to be getting to that point as well. I'm seeing this also with some of the Android stuff. I mean, it's not probably as prevalent as Steam, but I like the fact that I can buy a game on my Android console, the Android TV that I have, the Nvidia Shield, and then play it on my little GPD Android handheld or vice versa. I've got all my emulators synced up that way as well, and I've really gotten to the point where I am not tethered to one particular piece of hardware for gaming, and I really believe this is where the market's going to go. We all have these little powerful computers in our pockets, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more things kind of maybe traverse mobile back to desktop or to TV moving forward, and I think that's what a lot of consumers are going to want to do. And Jay Hodge wrote in wondering if I've made a video about all the memorabilia on my back wall here. I haven't done one of those in a while, so I figured it was a good time to do it, so let's check it out. We're actually going to start over here, though, with the Mac SE30 here in the background. This I got off of eBay a couple years ago, actually, right before the pricing on these things got ridiculously high. It still works. I haven't booted it up in a while, but it is there. Here is our Apple IIgs, which if you watched my retro review, you saw that we had a little bit of a smoking issue with the power supply, so I have to get that power supply repaired, but the 2GS does still work, and it's going to stay here for a while, just not in a working form, so be on the lookout. What I do in here is I keep a lot of my cables and things that I often get at frequently, so a lot of my adapters and everything I keep inside of this little stand here so that I can get at them quickly, so that is what is in the back there. Then over here, we have a picture of the space shuttle that my friends and I took in Cape Canaveral during the last couple of missions. I'll put a link to all my space coverage. We've done some really cool stuff, and we've had some really exciting access to the facilities at NASA as a result of that coverage. It was some other projects I was doing prior to the YouTube channel kind of taking off, and that brings us right to this shiny object here. This is my little trophy that I got for surpassing 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. That came in not too long ago, and we have a live stream of that unboxing, which was really fun. So that was a great milestone, which was thanks to all of you who were a big part of that. Down here, I've got a plug-and-play Atari controller. This is one of those games on a controller thing, but it reminds me a lot, of course, of the original paddle controllers that I had on my 2600 that are hidden somewhere in the basement down here. I'll have to find it. This is a random VHS tape that I have. Down here are some older game cartridges. So we have two Sega 32X games. We have Afterburner, which I got probably in 1997, maybe 96, and Space Harrier. These were a very short-lived game console from Sega. It was a add-on to the Sega Genesis that completely bombed, and I got the system, the little add-on system, for $29, and these games were like dirt cheap at that point. So I picked up a bunch of that stuff when it happened, when that crash occurred on the Sega add-on there. This is some Atari 8-bit cartridges. My wife had an Atari 800. It's in the back of the basement. I have to get it out and play with it at some point. And these are cartridges that you would plug into the 800. It ran on floppy disks, but they also had games on cartridges too. Down here, we've got a couple of original Sega Genesis cartridges. This is Championship Pro-Am, which is the Sega Genesis version of RC Pro-Am. Really fun game. And then we got Ghouls and Ghosts, which is another one of my favorites. I've never finished the games. It's so freaking hard. But this is, I think, the third or fourth game that I bought for the Sega Genesis back in 1989 or 90. And there is my original Sega Genesis controller. I don't think this one works anymore, which is why it ended up here. Below that, we have a couple more controllers. This is an Apple II controller. This is an original Apple joystick, and that connected up with my Apple IIe and my 2C and my 2GS, so that was a fun little relic to have there. And then, of course, we've got an original Nintendo controller. Then we'll zoom back out. We'll go back up to the top here. I have a Sega Genesis. This is my original Sega Genesis. This is a first-generation version. I got it right when it came out in 1989. I was so excited to see it at my Toys R Us. In fact, it showed up earlier than I expected it to. And it was an awesome thing to add to my collection and get some 16-bit gaming going on. Little did I know it would be such a big success. I was a fan of the Master System because I always liked the underdog, and Sega Genesis was something that I thought was going to have some potential, and it sure as heck did. Below that, we've got some representatives of Nintendo. So I had a 8-bit Nintendo back as a kid, and I never did own a Super Nintendo, but I bought one not too long ago to use some flash cartridges with, and it came with a couple of games, so I have just some examples of Super Nintendo games back there, just to be fair, to have Sega and Nintendo fairly represented. Got a High 8 handy cam here, just randomly. It was my dad's old camcorder. This was actually a pretty decent camcorder back in its day because it recorded in stereo, and the video quality was pretty nice on it too. Not digital though. So at some point, I'm going to have to transfer all the tapes over from that thing. I'm sure we've got a lot of family memories locked on 8mm tape. Here I've got some examples of Nintendo games. This is a mix of my wife's collection and mine. My wife is actually a big Nintendo person. I didn't realize it until we were dating for a while, and I took out an emulator, and she was all over Zelda for so long. So that was her favorite game as a kid, was Legends of Zelda. She had Bubble Bobble. I think this Mario Brothers Duck Hunt was hers also. I got 2 of these. I don't know how I ended up with 2 of them. And then Strider, Duck Hunt, Operation Wolf, and Batman are mine. I got more in the back too, but I'm a big fan of old video games, as all of you know. Now this was my first computer. This is a Timex Sinclair 1000. My father bought this when I was probably in kindergarten or first grade. I had just gotten done with a computer class, and I really wanted a computer. We couldn't afford a computer at the times. They were so expensive, but he found this on there was this show on this New York TV station, and they would have this crazy reverse auction guy screaming and yelling, and they would just keep lowering the price until people started buying it. And that was what my father bought it from. I'll have to look and see if I can find some video of that show. But this was it. It ran on cassette tapes. These are actually cassette tapes from back in that era there, as I drop it here. And you had to plug in a cassette recorder to it, and the games and software would load from these tapes. There was no floppy drive on this particular device. The other option was you could type them in, which took forever on that membrane keyboard. What is not shown is the memory expansion. I think this only had 2K of RAM, and that memory expansion added a little bit of extra RAM to the mix here. So not a very powerful computer, but it was my first computer until we could afford that Apple. So there you go. Below that, we've got my ColecoVision controller. This is my original ColecoVision controller from back in the 80s, along with my all-time favorite Coleco games. So Zaxxon was one that I played quite a bit. I did play a lot of Q*bert on my ColecoVision, as I did Cosmic Avenger, Carnival, Bump and Jump, which was like a really big favorite of mine. And then Destructor, which used the driving add-on that I had for the ColecoVision. Coleco is just an awesome system. If you've never played with it, start doing some research, do some emulation. It wasn't arcade perfect, but it was such a light years ahead system over the 2600 back in the early 80s, and what a blast that system was. Really, really good stuff. Below that, I got a bunch of random floppy disks. So this is Operation Wolf for MS-DOS. I got some 3.5-inch disks from my Apple IIgs, and then Skyfox here was an old Apple II game that I bought probably back in the early 80s, and most of these disks still work too, believe it or not. Pretty cool stuff. So move over to the next row. I've got a couple of wax packs. I bought these Return of the Jedi cards recently, and there were some other random cards that came with it. It's like just the notion of having an unopened pack of trading cards from the 80s just for whatever reason appealed to me at the time, so that's what I went with. This shelf here, I just wanted to fill up with some random stuff, so I found a bunch of DVDs and GameCube games and some Xbox games just to kind of fill up the shelf there, so that's what we have over there. Here's my Atari 2600 shelf. So I have an original 2600 controller. These are a bunch of my games that I had from back in those days, and Combat at the top was the pack-in games. That came packed in with our Atari 2600. I remember my dad bought Space Invaders and Home Run when we got it, and then I added some other games later. One of my favorite games on Atari is this one. This is my actual cartridge from when I was a kid, The Empire Strikes Back. I still play that game in emulation quite frequently. It's a lot of fun. A lot of you ask about the Blockbuster case here, and I'll have you know this is not an overdue game. For a while, Blockbuster used to let you buy the game after you rented it. I was part of that Blockbuster Netflix alternative for a while, and it was great. I could see why Blockbuster went out of business, because you would go to the store and never have to pay for anything, including some of the games. So you could rent the game with your coupon and then just hold on to it and buy it for whatever the used price was. So that's what that was there. So the next level here, of course, we had our Return of the Jedi card, and then we have some Tron cards here. This thing right here, let's straighten it out again. It's going to fall. See, that was why I shouldn't touch these things. This thing right here is a compact iPack, and it is a little personal digital assistant, kind of an alternative to the Palm Pilot. And what was significant about this one is it ran the Windows Pocket PC operating system, and it's a really nice device. There was these little cartridges that you could, or sleds that you could slide it into to add functionality. So they had memory add-ons, they had a PC MCIA slot so you could put in Wi-Fi cards and whatnot. Really slick device, and what was really cool about this is that it had a reflective screen, so you could see it out in direct sunlight, and then it would backlight when you were not in direct sunlight. So really advanced PDA for the time, and I got a lot of use out of it back in the day. And then if we go back in time a little bit more, we've got a Newton here. This is a Newton 120. Now I bought a Newton 110 back in 1994, which was, I'm going to do a retro review on this when I do my next one, because this is a really, I think it was way ahead of its time, but a really cool platform for a personal digital assistant. They really got creamed by Palm Pilot because they were too big. I think they were too ambitious in what they were trying to achieve with the Newton platform, but it was a very cool device for the time, and maybe I'll do a retro review to show you exactly all the things that it could do. This is the 120, so this was the third iteration of the Newton. I had the 110, which actually looks like the 120, but it was a little slower, and I think, maybe it wasn't this one, I think the 130 had a backlit screen, but they kept improving on it, but they never quite got it, and of course when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he killed it. This is the Lazer Tag star sensor. I did a retro review of Lazer Tag a few years ago. I'll put a link to that in the video description. And then up here we have a Game Boy Advance that still works. I just have to get some batteries in it, and an old zip disk, an old Zip 100, which is was a great platform for the time because you can get 100 megabytes on each of these disks. And back then, disk space was very expensive, and these were very useful disks to have. So there you go. That's everything that we've got behind me right now. And these are all things that I have owned at some point in my life. So these are things that I've actually used and had as a part of my technological upbringing that are now here behind me, which is kind of fun to still have all of this stuff. So good that my mom didn't throw it out. My wife let me keep it all, and now there's a good spot for all of it to live. So that is why I am doing that. Now it's time for a Q&A for you, and I would love to get your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch. Do you think I'm crazy that game hardware is getting commoditized, or does Nintendo have something here that you think will be successful? Let me know down in the comment stream below. I do think this commoditization will speed up in the coming months. I'm starting to see more and more of these living room PCs getting announced by different manufacturers, and I'm seeing the cost on these things getting very close to what you might expect for a game console, so we'll have to see what happens, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Now it's time for our big giveaway. We've got a lifetime Plex Pass, which will get you all the cool new Plex features, and you can enter that contest at Lon.TV/enter. This is international, so you don't have to just be in the United States for this one, so feel free to enter no matter which country you are in. We're going to announce the winner on next week's wrap-up, and the entries close Sunday night here in the United States on Eastern Time at midnight. So get your entries in before then, and then a week from today, I will announce who gets the Plex Pass. And if you're curious about Plex or want to sign up for a free account, you can go to Lon.TV/Plex and do that. We also get a small commission when you do that. So if you are eager to try out Plex without having to use a credit card, check it out right there. And I want to thank them for getting us our giveaway. It's a $120 value. Now, if you want to help the channel, you can go to Lon.TV/Patreon and make a monthly contribution to the channel. We also have one-time contributions available for you to make at Lon.TV. Just be sure to let me know you did it so I can make sure I thank you on the wrap-up in the coming weeks. You can also engage with the channel. We got the Extras channel, which I've been pushing a lot today at Lon.TV/Extras. We also have my email list at Lon.TV/email, which I actually sent an email out for yesterday, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to try to get into a more regular flow of doing that. So be on the lookout for that and subscribe to that. We have the Facebook page, which I am posting a lot more to now as well at Lon.TV/Facebook. And I will be stocking up the store with a lot of stuff soon. I have to get some time to organize, but I'm going to be clearing out a whole bunch of stuff that I reviewed prior. So be on the lookout. I'll probably send out an email to the email list when I do restock the store. So if you want to subscribe, you will get some notification as to when that stuff gets in there. And I'm not like a reseller with a warehouse. This is just stuff that I reviewed here on the channel and I'm now getting rid of. So that is what I use the store for. And a lot of that stuff you'll find at a pretty good discount versus what it costs new. I buy a lot of these things new and then I resell them at a lower price because they're used. So be on the lookout for that. So this week I've got one thing I'm definitely going to be doing. In fact, it is right here. I got in the new Apollo Lake Intel NUC, and I realized I've never actually reviewed a NUC before on the channel. I guess I never get to these things quick enough, or I have some fascination with some of these no-name brands from overseas. So this one is a legit Intel NUC. I'm going to do an unboxing video on the Extras channel in a few minutes. What I am going to be doing, though, is getting 8 gigabytes of RAM in here because this does support dual channel memory. So one of the things we'll look at in my review when I do it later this week is the difference in performance between dual channel and single channel memory. And the nice thing is going to dual channels is as simple as plugging in another RAM module and you're good to go. What I found interesting about this NUC, it's about $200, is that it has Windows 10, a license for Windows 10, 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigabytes of storage. So it's a NUC that you can just boot up right out of the box without having to buy any additional components. But I do think bringing it up to 8 gigs of RAM will be a good solution for us. So be on the lookout for the Intel NUC. Hopefully get the unboxing up for you all in a little while. So that may come later tonight or tomorrow morning. So that's going to do it for this week's weekly wrap up. I'm going to be going through some not bad changes, good changes here on how I shoot all the videos here on the channel. I'm trying to get away from my little recorder here on the desk and use my TriCaster for everything. I have to work out some issues with interlacing and progressive scan and all this other crazy stuff. So you might be seeing some maybe some odd little weirdness on the channel as I'm getting all those things worked out. But I'd love for any feedback you have as to the video quality as I start playing around with this. I'm actually making the transition right in the middle of the wrap-up. I'm starting the beginning of it on my solid-state disk here, and the rest of it was getting recorded on the TriCaster because my recorder completely melted down on me in the middle of this. So I just have very bad luck with electronics, and I do this for a living almost. So any event, that is stuff to be on the lookout for. Lots more to come here on the channel. I want to thank you all for your continued support and feedback, and I will see you very soon with my next review and, of course, next week on the wrap-up. This is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.